please?
No.
There we go.
There we are.
There we are. Hello, everyone.
Okay, hello, everyone. Today's the 24th of February. It's 2:05. This is the Vehicle and Transportation Subcommittee, Motor Vehicle Subcommittee of the Environment and Transportation. We'll go through a couple of bills today. HB 102, Lehman's bill. We talked about it a little bit last week, and we're just going to hold it for today. I know it's unusual, but that's what we're doing for now. Parrott's bill. Neil, are you here?
Neil is not here.
Okay.
Dave, we can't hear you.
The subcommittee chair is more than welcome to procure his laptop and then come down over to our office and use our stellar Wi-Fi signal here if he would prefer.
Or you could come to the conference room in the NP.
Exactly. It must be wired in that electric car.
That's pretty good. I give you that one.
Molly, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I'm actually in another I'm in another office, but my Wi-Fi in the office works fine. So I'm going to stop streaming for right now.
I hope everybody heard me. Is Delegate Parrott here yet? Okay, so just so everybody knows, on HB 222, Delegate Parrott, just because we've passed the bill several times, talking to the chair, just kind of thought, and I did talk to Neil about really getting the Senate version moving before we pass this one. And he agreed. So I've talked to him about it. He's got to try to get the Senate version moving. Is there any questions on that? I figured I'd save everybody a bunch of time and energy.
So we're holding the bill until the Senate moves on.
Yeah, we're holding the bill to see if the Senate's actually able to move it, because otherwise it just kind of sits over there. So we want to see the Senate.
Sorry, which HB again? Sorry.
It's 222,
Oh, yeah.
the right-hand bill.
Yep.
So HB 230, Delegate Carr, speed monitoring systems, exclusion of vehicle rental companies, repeal notification requirement. Patrick, do you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah, you were emailed a reprint of this. Delegate Carr had some amendments. I don't really understand the need for amendments. For the amendments, I think they're a little bit too broad. They apply to all speed cameras, and they put in emails and stuff as for citations. I don't know anywhere where that's been used. There was opposition from Baltimore City and Enterprise Rental. And then MDOT said if we do it, they'd like us to add work zones. This is the bill that took away the exclusion for vehicle rental cars from the speed camera program.
Right.
Go ahead, Delegate Learman.
No, I was just, did we consider this last year?
Hard to keep track. He's put them in for school bus cameras, red light. I think we did red light cameras last year.
Okay.
I think it was red light.
I could be wrong about that. I'll check.
Okay. No worries.
But
I just couldn't remember. That's fine.
I don't think this bill was in last year.
Okay.
Brad,
So I will say that I did. I mean, we should chat a little bit about it, because what we have done kind of year over year with these bills is we've kind of deferred to the rental car companies. But there are other states, to Delegate Carr's point, there are other states that don't just defer to the rental car companies. And I mean, year after year, we haven't done much with these bills. But the fact of the matter is that the message that sends, and I want to have an open conversation about this, I'm just kind of saying my piece, the message that sends is, come on over to Maryland, rent a car, run through all the speed light cameras you want, go as fast as you want. You're never going to have to pay for any of your tickets. And so I've been in the past, I've been kind of resident to move forward too much because I know there's a lot of pushback. But there comes a time where, you know, I don't know. That's kind of what I feel about it. I'm just a little bit. I'm getting to the point where we see all these bills over and over again, and I don't know, other states find a way of charging people that rent their cars for violating the law, and so I'd like to hear what everybody has to say on it. Oh, Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that Mr. DiLorenzo came in FWA, but there's no written testimony. So I was wondering if anyone remembered what his WA was.
It's possible that's Delegate Carr's amendment. I'm not sure.
Okay, because I remember they've been in opposition, flat out opposition before. So this is different. Thank you.
Delegate Boyce.
Can I hear from Baltimore City? Because I know they wrote a letter of opposition and I want to kind of thoroughly hear what their issue directly is.
Absolutely.
Yes, Delegate, this is Liam Davis with Baltimore City DOT. We actually had a meeting with MOGR, Baltimore City Administration, and Baltimore City DOT. We had a meeting with Delegate Carr yesterday to clear up some of our initial confusion. And we are likely going to be submitting updated testimony favorable upon the amendments drafted by Delegate Carr.
And can you explain what the confusion was?
Yeah, so when we were initially reading the bill, so typically what happens is when we get assigned a bill from MOGR, I filter it to our specific division chiefs. And it wasn't flagged from our ATVS division chief that currently vehicle rental companies are exempt from the citations, automated citations. So the way that we initially interpreted the bill was that it was just going to be adding an additional notice. Like we interpreted it as though it would require to send out an additional 30,000 letters a year. And it wasn't clear when we were submitting our testimony that they're currently exempt from the citations. And that changes everything dramatically. Because even if we were to send out more mail, the revenue from those additional citations would be more than enough to cover it. So that's kind of where the confusion was.
Chairman, may I ask Liam a question?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Patrick.
In the Delegate Carr's amendment, he authorizes an agency to send by text or email to an owner liable a citation. Do you know if that's even a capability and of anyone who mails a citation electronically?
So I don't know offhand, but it's something that I can look into more. But my understanding is that it would allow, the communications with the vehicle rental companies to be done electronically. Now, if that's not going to work, I think we could still work with the legislation even without the amendment.
Okay. So are you saying, Liam, now that you, with or without this amendment, with this new understanding, that you are supportive of the bill? That Baltimore City is supportive of the bill?
So I think that that's the direction we're going. I would wait until you get that written testimony, and that'll come on letterhead from Baltimore City Administration. It's something I'm going to be drafting today and working to confirm with Natasha Mayhew.
Okay. Delegate Boyce, did you have further questions?
I guess I'm confused about the bill now. Because I think this was a bill from last year. Remember the guy who says that we had the provisions where they had to, they get the speeding citation from the rental company because the rental company owns the car, and they've got X amount of days to then get the bill to the renter. But if it didn't get to the renter in time, if I'm correct, then that they were on the hook for the charges. And there was an issue, because we talked about mail being an issue at the time, as we see right now with Easy Pass. So I guess I'm not clear about the purpose of the bill.
So
I don't think I'm
Yeah,
clear.
okay.
What, Brooke? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was talking to my aide. Sorry, I
No.
didn't know I was on mute.
So the way that I understand it, and Delegate Carr has had a number of these bills in over the years, dealing with red light cameras, which I think was last year's, dealing with, or maybe that's this, and then dealing with speeding, and all of these have the same common denominator, the same common theme, and that is that the rental car companies aren't. There's a lot of trouble between the rental car companies collecting the fee from the person who rented the car. So what we've done is we just really haven't done much with them over the years. So Mr. Rifkin, I see you nodding like you know exactly what you're talking about. Did you want to weigh in at all on this?
Please.
And Mr. Chairman, before Brad weighs in, I just looked it up. Last year's bill was red light cameras.
That's-
Same-
yeah.
Same.
Yeah, Patrick's right. It's
What
been
happened to that
consideration
bill?
of red light cameras or speed cameras over probably the last 6 sessions, if I'm not mistaken, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair. And it's all the same, you know, the rental cars position, at least my client, Enterprise Holdings. I won't speak for Mr. DiLorenzo, who testified. He's got his own rental car company. But as far as my client's concerned, it's really, you hit the nail on the head. It's us having a problem collecting from a number of our renters who, after a certain period of time, either their credit card is no longer on file or doesn't run, some of them pay in cash, and it's just impossible to seek reimbursement. So on those situations, my client ends up eating the cost. Now, obviously, it's your purview to make a decision that you want, and I understand what's being discussed here. But you know, my client's position is, as the not at fault party, it is a burden, a financial burden, and it will ultimately create issues down the road. So I think for us, we are just opposed to it in general, and we've told and worked with Delegate Carr in the past to at least make that abundantly clear. But I understand concerns of the committee as well, so I'm not oblivious to it.
Delegate Foley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for either Ms. King or Mr. Davis. Is there a lot of, I mean, is it your understanding that there's a lot of money for citations that's not being paid? I mean, like, what's the scope of this problem?
So I can answer from the research in Baltimore City. So we were able to pull 6 months of data, 6 months worth of data. And within that 6 months, I believe this is from 2021, there was nearly 15,000 instances of this. So assuming that is 6 months is 12 months, you put it at roughly 30,000. At 40, assuming a $40 citation, you know, could be more with red light cameras. That's $1.2 million.
A lot of money.
So
Yeah,
What was
yeah, that's a
those-
lot of money. And then my other question is for Mr. Rifkin. Is it the rental cars position? It's hard for me to believe this would be true. Is it the rental cars company's position that these citations should never be paid?
Rental cars company's position is, if the state wants reimbursement on that, then instead of having the rental car companies be the long arm of the state, that the state, you know, fund some type of mechanism by which they do this.
Well,
I
how
mean,
would they know how would they know who was driving the car?
How would they know who's driving the car?
Right.
That's, again, that's part of the interface that would have to be in place in order for the state and the rental car company to work together. But the idea that, you know, we have a period of time in the mail to respond when citations take forever to get to us, We then have to go track down the individual, mail it back. It's just not a feasible, it's not workable under the bill. So inevitably, my client will end up losing significant revenue out of their own pocket to pay for citations that they didn't run red lights for, that they didn't speed. They're just the vehicle owner. I mean, I understand the purpose of what we're talking about here, and I understand the purpose of speeding cameras. It's to promote safety. But ultimately, if the individual renter is not held accountable, it's not promoting safety. It's just taking money out of the pockets of the rental car companies.
So I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I guess I want to know what's your idea for other than just letting these go without paying. And we just heard how much money this is in Baltimore City, right? Or an approximation of that. Other than just letting them go without being paid, what's your, I mean, do you have a better solution? I mean, what is your, the only way that the charging agency can know is who the driver was is through the rental car agency. Isn't that right?
I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's right. I haven't seen the reprint, so I haven't had a chance to see whatever amendments are being offered by Delegate Carr and his communication with, I guess, Mr. DiLorenzo. That's not something that we've been privy to. So I'd love to be able to see a reprint of what he thinks might be a good solution. But again, the idea of, a window of time that, frankly, it's just, you have to, from our perspective, my client gets thousands and thousands and thousands of tickets every day, and being able to parse through which tickets are speed tickets versus which tickets are red light tickets versus which tickets are, parking violation tickets versus which tickets are toll tickets, it's impossible. So they all get sent to a consolidated facility. So if there's a better way to flag specifically that it's a speeding camera ticket, and then create some type of communication between the company and the state to figure that out, that would be a much better solution than simply putting it on the rental car company that has, again, I'll have to get the exact number, but thousands and thousands of tickets daily to parse through.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Delegate.
Yeah, I guess one way to take care of that, Brad, is to just not exempt them from any of those tickets so that they have to pay all of them.
And that's,
again, that's
your purview.
They don't have to figure it out.
I mean, that's your purview. And I would just maintain again that, Enterprise, for instance, rents cars to people without credit card, and they do that and they allow that. And that's not something that a lot of rental car companies do. And it's something that I think is a real benefit to parts of Maryland. And I would suggest.
Brad, sorry, I didn't ask. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Understand.
We're off topic.
Yeah, understand. I was just saying that.
Yeah,
it goes.
No. So I will just say, I wanted to get back to Delegate Foley's question about how much this was costing the state, because I think the cost is important, but we put in these red light cameras around schools, right? Like red light and speeding cameras. Speeding cameras are by schools. So that means that just in Baltimore City alone, there were 30,000 cars speeding by, somebody's kid's elementary school. And so I just this is a public safety issue. I am not sure why Enterprise in all the other states can manage to pay this and figure it out, and they can't in Maryland, whether that's they pay the ticket and then they charge the client so they have more time and then they can recoup that money themselves. I just think there are ways to do this, but at the end of the day, these cameras are there next to these schools for safety reasons. And I don't think, Brad, I didn't ask a question. And so I think it's important that we just keep that in mind when we're considering this bill.
Yeah, I agree. April, do you know, so we got the numbers from the city. Do you know what the overall general, do you have an idea what the overall general numbers are across the state?
Unfortunately, I do not. We do not keep the numbers on our end. Our part of this is to lift the flag. So when we hear from the jurisdictions, then we go ahead and lift the flags. Our part in this is not to collect the fines or to distribute the notices for the actual fine. So I hope that does offer some sort of clarification on that.
Where would we go to find those exact numbers? Who would we talk to? Can you make a call for us and figure out what that looks like?
These programs are run by the jurisdictions.
Correct.
Every single one of them.
So this would be per jurisdiction, the numbers would be brought.
Well, that's the numbers in Baltimore City alone.
Right, correct.
And look at Montgomery County and Prince George's County, but Montgomery County's probably got a lot of them.
And we have
Right.
municipalities that have them too. So it's not just in the county. There'd be a number of other smaller jurisdictions that have cameras.
Delegate Learman, did you have anything else or? Okay, Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. I know we had the red light camera one last year. Am I correct that that did not pass?
Correct.
Okay. My second question is, are rental companies exempt from all tickets? I feel like I just heard that.
No, school bus cameras they're not exempt from school bus cameras.
Not exempt from school bus cameras. So they are from red light cameras, they are from speed cameras. What about parking tickets? No? Okay. So we're about to have cameras in Baltimore City on the bus lanes. So where would they be on that?
I think they were exempt on that.
Okay. So my concern is that we're going to have this bill, some iteration of it every year. So I think we either deal with it in its entirety or we shut it down in its entirety. I don't want to keep seeing bill by bill by bill by bill by bill.
I agree.
That's my comment. Thanks.
Yep. Delegate Healy.
Thank you very much. I agree. I think that it's a global issue we should deal with. I'm not sure this is the vehicle to deal with it because it seems more complex than that. But I wanted to ask Mr. Rifkin about some of the things they may be doing in other states that we might be able to replicate to make it work. One bit of information that the rental car company has is the driver's license number of the people who rent the vehicle, right? So that at least you have that bit of information, which has their address and where to send a ticket and how to hold them accountable using that bit of information that you have. So how do we get that information to the jurisdiction so that they can hold the driver accountable without using, putting all the burden on the rental company to try to catch up with them later?
Delegate, it's a good question. I mean, look, I think in some states, and I believe Delegate Carr has more research than I have on it, but I think there are a lot of states that just don't exempt the rental car company, and that's a policy that the state chose. There are some states, I believe, and local jurisdictions that have, I don't know if it's a policy in place, but a requirement that the jurisdiction interface electronically and mark those tickets specifically out. Because again, what I was saying about my client is, again, they get thousands of tickets, and trying to parse through all these tickets and have someone look at which one they can take out and then transfer the liability over. And it's just not feasible when
I got that part. I'm just trying to find out how we get the name of the driver.
So it may be some type of electronic interface that is in place that each jurisdiction has, and then they send out specifically, they've already parsed out, send it. It's not hard to figure out which rental car companies are licensed, and then send those rental car companies the specific ticket. That way it's already identified. That might be a way to go about it. And I don't know if that's in the reprint, Mr. Chair. I just haven't seen it. That may be what Delegate Carr was getting at. And I think that was part of Mr. DiLorenzo's testimony, if I'm not mistaken. But again, the issue is just, if we're not collecting, my client's not collecting 40% of the reimbursements, because you're right, Delegate Learman, and I didn't mean to cut you off, I apologize. When they're receiving all these tickets and they go back to seek reimbursement, which they have the right to do under the contract, there are, according to my client, 40% of the time, they're not getting reimbursed. So that is, when we're talking about the speed camera and the red light camera, which I believe were created to promote public safety, different than it's a parking ticket or easy pass, then my client, who's not the at fault, is being held responsible. And it's a public policy decision for you all, right? Okay, so 40% of the time we're not seeking reimbursement, but then certainly there are times where individuals are paying, and I understand that. So it's a it's a strange,
Can we get back to my question? I want to really, I guess the other question I have is if we have, how many jurisdictions that are sending out these tickets that does your client have numbers of how many they get from each jurisdiction? If they already have connections through these different jurisdictions, that they can provide them with the driver's license information when they get the ticket. And then they're done with it because it's up to the town or the local jurisdiction to go after them.
I can try to find that information. I don't know how many states have, maybe it's 20 states, Mr. Chair. Patrick, you may know, 20, 22, 23 states that have these programs in place. And I don't know, I think maybe a large portion of them don't actually exempt the rental car industry. So I wouldn't profess information I didn't know, but I think
I'm just saying that you have a company that works in all you work for, your client is in all 50 states. So they would have the data. If you could take on for the committee, and because it would benefit your client to find out if there's a process that we can put in place and solve this so once and for all and not have bills every year.
I will absolutely work if you want to take between now and the next subcommittee for me to dig into it and see if there is some type of mechanism that works. I don't know to the extent I can find the number of tickets, because again, everything goes to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they process, maybe 20, 30,000 tickets a day. It's crazy. So I don't know if they're able to parse out which is which. They're just paying them, I think.
Okay, thank you very much.
Delegate Healy, according to the fiscal note, approximately 171 jurisdictions across the country have speed camera programs. In Maryland, 6 counties, Baltimore City, and 41 municipalities have the programs.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
Delegate Boyce, where's your hand up from the last time?
Yes, no, it's up.
Yeah.
So I'm just remembering something. I rented U-Haul a couple of years ago, and I remember maybe 6 months later, there was money taken out of my account. And when I investigated it, apparently I'd had a speeding ticket between going from Baltimore to DC, and they've deducted it. So could you contract, or could your client contract to be able to hold, especially those with credit cards, to hold the credit card for an X amount of time? So when the ticket comes, you charge the individuals for the ticket and then you pay the ticket. It's a wash.
I don't know to the extent to which the client in terms of time holds the credit card. There must be some time that they do. And then there must be a period of time they must relinquish it. And then, to the individuals that rent with cash and to the individuals that rent without a credit card.
Yeah, I know, but
they don't get reimbursed.
Okay, that's fine, Brad. But the point I'm making, this does feel solvable in that the credit cards could be held for an X amount of time to clear the account of tickets or whatever, or the deposit is held until 6 months, because then the deposit could potentially pay for the ticket if there is a ticket. So why is that hard? And I get the 40%. So the question is the 40% of the money that you're not getting are the individuals who would otherwise pay cash and not use credit card?
I don't know if I'll try to see if I can dig up what those numbers are and if the client can get back to me on that. But I would imagine it's some portion of those who put a card down and eventually, it's maybe expired. So they can hold the card, but the card could be expired.
That's understandable, but it just feels like this is an easy fix in that regard. And I do agree that the person driving the vehicle should be the person who has to pay the fee, pay the cost for the infraction. But I'm having a hard time believing, I think, to Delegate Healy's point, and Delegate Foley's point, why can't this be solved by the company as far as getting reimbursed. I mean, are there laws in the books stating how long you can or cannot hold a credit card?
I'm sure the client, if they wanted to, could go after someone for $50. I think there just comes a business point where that's not feasible.
But to me, but that's not the point I'm making. It's not going afterward. You would have their credit card on file and under contract, know that that credit card will still be held until the account is cleared. In other words, to make sure that there are no tickets that would come through or any parking fines that would come through.
Doug, I totally understand your point. I guess my only retort to that is I don't know in terms of that 40% loss that my clients, incurring, whether or not that is all because of credit cards that they've now relinquished or are no longer being charged. Because what I don't want to suggest to the client is they start requiring credit card for every rental, because that's
not the point I'm making. The point that I'm making is that two things should be true at the same time. They're not getting 40%, but they are getting 60%. That's more than half. So,
and that goes back to maybe there is a solution to what, and when I see the reprint, maybe that is what Delegate Carr is getting at with Mr. DiLorenzo with respect to some type of interface that the state has or local jurisdiction has with the licensed rental car companies, because they're only we all know who the licensed rental car companies are. So if there is a way to, create some streamlined, interface, maybe that's the answer.
Yes. Understood.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, Mr. Rifkin, I think what I'd really like to do here, you've heard from most of the members here. There's a critical mass now. This has been 5-6 years that we've been kicking the can, and I think we're done kicking the can. So I guess my request to you would be to go back to your client and or others in the industry and come up with some possible recommendations or some possible amendments that will work based on perhaps what's been done in other states, so that, obviously we don't want your client to not be able to make money, while at the same time, we don't want kids to get run over in school zones and especially stoplights. Stoplights, those are where T-bone accidents happen, and those are where people really, really get hurt. And so in my mind, there seems to be that, in your contract, maybe if you don't stipulate or reiterate and draw attention to your client, to your client's clients as they rent cars, that in the state of Maryland, they will pay the ticket. You do not just get to drive around the state of Maryland, blow through stoplights and speed down the road and put people in jeopardy and not pay. So, and then we'll discuss it at next week's subcommittee hearing.
Totally understand, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time to talk. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Brad. Thank you. Anybody else on that? Otherwise, we're going to move to the next one. Okay, Patrick, Delegate Corbin's bill. We have that to talk about as well. Vehicle laws, penalties, lapses of security transfer certificate of title. I remember talking a little bit about this one. Is there any, Patrick?
I'm right here.
Oh, any conflict with this? Let's talk about it a little bit.
No conflict. The bill's actually really kind of simple. Right now, if you sell your car or gets totaled, something happens and you've got to, get rid of the registration. And if you get rid of the insurance before you bring the plates in, you basically, not by law, but by practice, MVA gives you 5 days.
Right.
So if you're supposed to give them the plates first, especially because the insurance goes faster than the plates often. But you get 5 days, and this bill extends it to 10, and also says that, before they assess a penalty, they have to just check to see if they have the plates waiting to be processed. There have been some amendments suggested, and this is why we're going to have to hold it this week. Had some questions on the amendments. The questions are answered, just haven't had a chance to draft it. The amendments were suggested by both MVA and Delegate Corman, the sponsor, to kind of expand the program, to expand the 10-day waiver to apply to different situations. So I think it's a kumbaya thing. We just have to get the busy work done.
Okay, Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this actually comes from one of our constituents who mailed in his plates, then reached out to his insurance company. The insurance company canceled the insurance before MVA canceled the plates, even though he had sent them in beforehand. And MVA said, oh, absolutely, you shouldn't have, a ticket, that's fine. And, not a problem. And so Delegate Corman said, well, we're going to put in a bill. And MVA said, well, actually, there are other areas where we do this too. And he's like, well, then just don't. But that's where the amendments come from. So yes, Patrick, it is sort of a kumbaya thing on those.
Agreed, April?
Agreed. I do want to just clarify that the ones that we added are situations where we see a delay, not on the part by the customer, but example, dealerships that when someone trades their car in, the dealer then has the tags and may not turn the tags in on time. So we just want to be able to offer that customer service. What should I say? It's a good bill. It helps everyone. So it's a good customer service kumbaya moment.
Okay. And April, there's no concern. There's no concern. No, never mind. I'll let it go.
Okay. If you have a follow-up question, just let me know.
All right. Let's jump down to 469, another car bill.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yeah.
are we not taking up HB 102?
We are not.
Oh, okay, I missed that.
Okay.
We
That was one
held
of
that the first thing when
Okay,
this
sorry.
thing was going in and out.
Okay, House Bill 469, Delegate Carr, Motor Vehicle Administration's Traffic Control Signaling System, Reciprocal Agreement. We've had a few of these bills in from Delegate Carr over the years. Patrick, what are your thoughts? What is the committee's thoughts on this particular bill? Patrick, can you give us a 30-second primer on what this bill does?
Well, this authorizes MVA to enter into reciprocal agreements with other jurisdictions for enforcement of automated enforcement.
Which we have for Easy Pass, but we don't have for this.
No, we don't have it for Easy Pass, I don't think either. We don't want it for Easy Pass. The Easy Pass, they contracted out with a collection agency to collect the out-of-state tolls.
Right, okay.
Yeah, on Easy Pass, they don't want to do it because our system is much more lenient than other states. And so we'd be subjecting our citizens to some of them have jail time.
Well, the one that we had on the floor a couple of years ago allows for that third party to go after violators in other states.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
this
Delegate Healy?
I'm sorry.
MVA does already have this authority, but no state does it for automated enforcement. And I was talking to April earlier today, and she was mentioning that, I don't know how they do it, but apparently some states don't go by the registration, the owner, like we do, they go by the driver. I don't know how they do that, but that creates an apples and oranges situation for reciprocal agreements.
It absolutely does, yeah.
If I could just add to that, that is correct. But I just want to add also that we give an opportunity for people to, during our adjudication, to come in and let us know that they're not the driver and prove that there was another driver or give a name of another driver. We do not feel comfortable suspending or revoking for a driver that from a vehicle violation in another state when we're not familiar with their adjudication process and if they would be allowed to give that information. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Delegate Healy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just, I don't think this is a good idea. I for a lot of reasons. And I think what April said just now confirms my suspicions that some states are just, we were very careful when we created our bill. We have a grace number on the speed cameras of 12 miles above the speed limit, so that if your speedometer is not quite accurate, you're still, covered and you're protected. And we have, over time, we've set limitations on when and where. And people who are driving under the rules in Maryland and they drive into DC, they expect it to be the same thing, and it's not. And they get big charges for tickets that, without any grace period or any kind of grace at all. So I just think that it's better to have a stand alone on this, my opinion.
I just want to be clear that I'm hearing from Delegate Healy, which may be the sentiments of the committee, is to move unfavorable.
That's what I was wondering.
I don't know.
I'll second that.
I'll second.
All right. So we have a first and a second to move unfavorable. All those in favor of the unfavorable signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Delegate Stein's bill, HB 679. There's no one against this bill, right, Patrick? As I recall,
I believe not.
unless somebody came up, and this just provides for a business license. I thought it was for underwriting, but it says vehicle sales.
Yeah, this was only Travis and Delegate Stein. Yeah, there was nobody against this bill.
Right, but is this for salespeople, Travis, or is this for underwriters, for the like the loan writers?
It is for salespeople are already required to have a license under Maryland law. Anybody who engages in the buying and selling of more than 3 vehicles a year has to have a license. So this is for those individuals that are selling you finance, maybe an warranty or an insurance product. It would be requiring them to go through the same licensing procedures.
Okay, and there's a mechanism for that? Is there's like a class or a certification for finance, right, for financiers?
Yeah, so this would still, the Motor Vehicle Administration already does it. So this would go through the exact same process that's already in place. They would just
be required.
The Motor Vehicle Administration, they would do a background check, which goes through the Criminal Justice Information System, CJIS. And then so long as that comes back clean, then the Motor Vehicle Administration will issue them a license.
I think what Travis said in his testimony too was that most of these folks are already licensed.
Yeah.
And this would just require everyone to be licensed.
Yeah, right. And just as a follow-up, I guess about half the states have this legislation, and where it first sort of hit my radar screen is when I learned about like companies, there's like a Rocket Mortgage, right? So Rocket Mortgage is starting like a Rocket Auto arm, and part of Rocket Auto is that they are going to market vehicle inventory all over the country. But when you call Rocket Auto, you don't know where you're calling. It's like a call center somewhere, and who knows where it could be. And if that person is selling a vehicle that may be on a lot in Florida, but then they're trying to sell you finance and insurance, you don't know who you're talking to. And so we want to make sure that when you are engaging in that type of negotiation, it should be with a licensed background checked individual employed by a dealership.
Okay. Delegate Foley, did you have anything? I know you're second on this bill. Did you have anything?
Yeah, I would thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to make the comment that Travis made, which is that, I think the big problem here is online, the online sales and the process that you go through online. And that's where this would come into play. More, I mean, also, others, but that's really what the big problem is. Am I right, Travis?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And I referenced, I was curious, just by way of your education, on how Carvana does it, because if you call about a Carvana car, then you may not be talking to somebody located in the Rockville location, but Carvana does have 7 licensed salespeople at their Rockville location. Which is through the NBA, which is great. They're playing by the rules. So they should also add, if they are doing F&I sales there as well, they should have F&I people that are tagged to that location at the same time.
So Travis, based on what you just said, what if this is happening, let's say from Florida, they're talking about inventory in Florida. Does that financing arm, is it required by law if it's financing in Maryland for a Maryland resident and a Maryland purchase, for it to be done through Maryland financing, or could some financier in Florida or Texas do it?
I mean, if you're buying a car in Florida, you're playing by Florida's rules.
Okay.
We only, whatever our laws only apply to the dealership locations within our state.
Good. Okay. Any other questions? Delegate Foley, anything that you'd like to say?
I just would like to urge the subcommittee to report favorable on this.
So are you making a motion, Delegate Foley?
I am making a motion that we vote favorable on this bill.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Great. Okay, all those in favor of the favorable signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Bills passed, subcommittee. HB 713, that's Delegate Lehman's horse riding helmet. Let's chat about that. I'm very open to it. I'm happy to move that bill, but let's talk about it. Any conversation? We could talk about it, I guess, in the spirit of bicycles and what we do in the state of Maryland for bicycles.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a couple comments in the beginning?
Absolutely, please.
I have some comments on the bill, not about the total substance, just little elements of the bill that I think the subcommittee should know about.
Yes, sir.
This bill has been introduced before. I knew I'd seen it before, all the way back to 2009. Delegate Pena Melnick, a seatmate of Delegate Lehman's, introduced it.
Oh, now we know where it comes from.
Possibly. But we hadn't seen it since then. And I don't know why it didn't pass back then, because I looked through the bill file from 2009. It was basically the same positive testimony. Nobody against it, but we didn't pass it for some reason. If anyone has a copy of the bill in front of them, it's House Bill 713. My first question, well, the first point to make would be on page 2, line 10. The sponsor has an amendment, just a one-word amendment to add public before horse riding path. So I just wanted the subcommittee to be aware of that. Second is in the same paragraph, which reads, this subsection only applies to, does not apply to a minor who is practicing for, riding to or from, or competing or performing in a show or event. The riding to or from is a little odd to me because it seems to contradict that it applies to riding on a highway, horse riding path, or other property. I mean, if you're riding from your stable, I guess, to the show, are we exempting that? I just think the subcommittee should be aware of that. At the show, I understand. Obviously.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So you're saying if they're at the show and they're competing, so they're competitively riding their horse, they don't actually, there's an exemption, so they don't have to wear the helmet while they're competing?
Where helmets are not historically part of the show or event.
All right. Well, that's concerning. That's concerning to me. The Tour de France, they have to wear helmets. You compete in Formula One, you have to wear helmets.
Every show that I know of requires helmets, but there may be some that don't, but everyone I've ever known of does.
Right.
I guess rodeos, maybe.
Yeah, that's bronco busting, sure.
Well, I think they wear helmets. Well, I don't know. I've seen them wear helmets in that. Not in Texas, but here.
I haven't seen it here. Okay, let's keep going. Questions?
Okay.
Then another.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can I jump in,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think Patrick has a really good point about going to and from the show. I'm okay with if you're practicing for a show that doesn't require it and during the show, but riding to and from the show, I don't think should be exempt.
Okay. Patrick, I know you were in the middle of it. Going? Was there something else?
No. I just wanted to point that out. It's up for the subcommittee to decide. If we're done with this discussion, then yeah, I got a couple more.
Doug Healy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, actually, I was here when they had, I'm sorry. I think I'm having some technical issues for a second. Okay, there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I was here in 2009 when we had this bill. I don't remember why. I do remember there were a lot of helmet bills that year on all kinds of things, and I don't know whether it was just the committee was tired of dealing with it or what. I don't remember, but it seems to me that, yeah, riding to and from, I think, doesn't make any sense to not have to have a helmet. If it's, if you're in some kind of display, I don't even know which competitions might not have helmets, but we don't know that because was there testimony about this part of the bill, Patrick?
Not that I remember, no.
Yeah, so. maybe we could ask a representative of the horse council or somebody who, or an advocate, one of the advocates for it, to let us know if why that is, or ask the sponsor why that's there.
Yeah.
Before we go ahead and jump, make changes.
So the only
Committees.
piece that I kind of mentioned, one is I agree that riding to or from an event should not be an exemption. And I would go so far as to further ask what kind of an event allows for an exemption. I mean, I'm sure everybody here remembers Christopher Reeves, like that happened while he was at an event. I don't know if he was wearing a helmet or not, but what we're saying by exempting that is that our minors, our kids, it's okay for them to ride a horse at a competitive event where they're competing. I mean, they're not practicing, they're actually pushing their horse and they're competing. And there's probably a higher probability of an accident there than maybe in other places. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't ride horses regularly. But to have our kids be able to enter an event on a 12 or 13 or 1,400 pound horse and actually have to wear a helmet all the rest of the time, but when they're actually competing in an event, not have, that just doesn't strike me as very logical conclusion to make. And I know the horse people will get really upset about it, especially some of the folks that are where it's steeped in history, but I just apply basic logic to this, and I have concerns with any exemptions. Thoughts?
Agreed. I mean, I'm not a horse, I don't ride horses really, but I think they should wear helmets. It's just safer. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if they're over 18, that's their choice, but.
Yeah.
I do ride horses and
Yeah.
I think they should. So I'm happy to do a little research as to what we're talking about, where they're, I'm told that especially Western events, they do not wear helmets. There are apparently quite a few.
Well, maybe they should. I mean, I agree.
That's something we need to talk about.
Yeah.
But that's a different bill and that concerns me because we haven't heard any testimony about that.
Delegate Jacobs?
Thank you. So I asked these questions during the hearing and I think they're important. I mean, it talks about, and it's from the enforcement side of it. It talks about first offense, written warning, second offense, 50, and third offense, 100. How do you know, are these misdemeanor charges or something where you have somewhere you can look back and tell that there has been a violation? I mean, how will the officers know whether there's been a first, second, or a third? That's one question.
Patrick, do you have a thought on that?
That was one of my questions I was going to get to too. I don't think there is a way. For
Should just be a civil
these
ticket.
officers are not going to be in vehicles.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And secondly, the educational materials, I mean, does every cop in Maryland have to carry educational materials? I mean, how do you figure out, it says a police officer that charges them must provide a minor with the educational materials. So is this like at the time of the event, or could it be mailed later? Or does every cop in Maryland have to carry these materials? I don't know what that means.
I have another question too.
Well, on that same point, Jay, right? So there are police officers that probably work in more, urban areas or suburban areas that don't see horse riding at all. And if they do, it's other police officers on horseback. But I can't think of any time that when I was a police officer that I ever saw anybody on horseback other than another police officer. And that was like once or twice. I mean,
Well, even if the bill doesn't say that, first of all. It just says if anybody is charged, you have to provide them with the information. So it doesn't matter if they're in the rural part or the urban part of the state. My question is every police department going to have this material on hand for all their officers that may be involved in one of these events?
Yeah, well, that's my point is that if you carried around everything, the police car would be like laden down with every single piece of material.
Well, we need to figure that out. That's what I'm saying.
Delegate Foley?
Yeah, this sort of implies that the adult who's supervising the minor gets the citation, but it doesn't really say that. I mean, it says a person who's convicted, I mean, who's convicted? Is it the,
No, it's the prohibition is against the adult.
against the adult? Okay,
Adult who is present and directly supervising a minor may not allow the minor to ride a horse. So
okay,
the
right.
could
That
not-
answers my question. Thanks.
Delegate Healy?
That was my question, so we're fine.
Okay. Delegate Love, do you still have interest in corralling a couple of people together to get answers to a couple of these questions? Because I am of the, I mean, I'm about to offer just an amendment that says that I don't care if you're at a horse event, I don't care if you're at a rodeo, if you're in the state of Maryland, that you need to wear a helmet. Like if you're a minor in the state of Maryland, and the idea that historically speaking, they haven't done it, it's steeped in history, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that argument at all.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Chair, but I feel very uncomfortable making a blanket rule like that without learning more about, I'm told Western shows don't have them. So I never rode Western. So I certainly can look into this more. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
I was going to
Thank you
say,
for volunteering, Delegate Love. I appreciate it.
I also agree with Delegate Love, and I'm wondering if the sponsor knows about that language and has that in there for a specific reason as well.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's a good
curious.
question too. Delegate Jacobs, did you have anything else or?
I did have one follow-up comment. Might I suggest, rather than have a written warning, $50 and $100 pyramid of fines, why don't you just have a fine?
Or you could just be silent on it and let the court set the fine.
Or be silent. But I mean, I don't think we should be doing first offense, second offense, third offense if you don't know how to track it. So either put a fine on or leave it to the courts.
I like to leave it to the courts.
That's what we usually do,
Okay.
almost always do.
So we'll have this hopefully on voting for next week. We're going to have a few of these on voting for next week. And Delegate Love, you're going to follow up a little bit. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Delegate Love. Thank you.
Can I make one more comment on this, Bill?
Yes, yes, sir. Please. Thank you.
I just want the subcommittee to know that on paragraph 5 states that a violation of the subsection is prima facie evidence of negligence. And that is basically shifting the burden of proof in any sort of civil matter. Just want to let it know it's nothing in there. Nothing wrong
That
with
might have been why the bill didn't pass last time.
I was
What does
going to
that
ask
mean?
you about that.
That might have
Patrick.
very well been.
Let's all hold on a second. What does that mean, Patrick?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. I'm not a lawyer. Tell me what that means.
Well, it's just the burden of proof. If I sue you, I have to prove that you meet the elements of negligence. If this is prima facie evidence of negligence, then the burden of proof shifts, and you have to show that you weren't negligent.
Okay.
I also had a question along those lines. So if it is, that struck me because it's one thing to say, okay, if the kid's not wearing a helmet, you get a fine. It's another thing to say that you're negligent because that comes with all sorts of other penalties and issues. Mm-hmm. So what are we opening up the door to there? With
the negligent phrase.
Right.
Maybe we can pull that out, Patrick.
Oh, you can do anything you want. It's your bill now.
But I feel like it also makes it harder because you are citing me for not wearing a helmet. Now I have to prove to you that I did.
It's more about allowing a child to wear it.
I get that, but then, but it's on the parent and suppose, I mean, look, it could be anything. I could have said that and be like, yes, I did have it on. It's like, well, no, you didn't. Like, unless you have like a camera, it makes it hard, whether it's the parent or the child, to prove that they may have had it on when they've been cited for not having it on.
Well, what you have to prove is that you weren't negligent.
Well, and the other thing is that because it involves children, the negligent phrase could be very, very damaging to someone. So that's like
To a
equal to
parent
the,
for a
you know,
child,
abandoning
yes.
my children, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's bad. It's really bad. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but you know, that also has a criminal meaning
Yeah.
to it when it, especially when it involves children, right? Am I right, lawyers?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
So that's why
Delegate Foley.
I don't know what we would be opening the door on with that phrase. It makes me very uncomfortable.
So we've got homework to do. That's all.
Yeah, we have some homework to do on this bill. Good. Okay, thank you, Delegate Love. All right, thank you, everyone. Look, we made a lot of progress today. We held some bills. We got to the bottom of the